smoked tomato steamed mussels on Implicit Bias at Mr. Lester Steakhouse down at Cypress Bayou Casino. Oh my goodness. Come here. Trust me, you want to try this. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. Welcome into what we call 2-2. Hour 2, segment 2 of this week's episode. As I said, I'm your host. We've got a great crew here for you. We've got Renee Girard of Piper's Haven, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. We've got the Rustic Renegade. He is Caleb Morse. He is eating all of the mussels before the plate comes to me. That's okay, because Chef Willie always takes care of everybody. We've got Grant Galatas of William S. Nacall Jewelers, a.k.a. K&B, as in Kennebra. And, of course, for the one lone time you will see him on camera. Well, no, actually, I think we'll put him on camera. Have we put him on camera twice, Aaron? Have we put him on camera more than twice? Oh, no. He does not get that much airtime.
Thank you, Aaron.
No,
Shout out Aaron
in the corner. He does not get that much airtime. That is Walker Griffon. He is the Implicit Bias Pledge. And let me tell you, hour 2, as I said, is always more fun, and this is why. Because we are now into our second weekly whiskey, which is a $15 pour of Foregate, the Bluegrass Series Trilogy 3. I mean, just an absolutely fantastic pour. This food looks ridiculous. And we have all right, Caleb, go ahead. Tell us about the mussels. Not your muscles, because I know you want to talk about yourself.
Look, my guns are getting a workout holding this plate. I'll tell you that right now.
Tell us about Chef Willie's mussels, because we know how much you like Chef Willie's mussels.
Who ever thought about smoking a tomato? Like, okay, Grant, don't look at me like that.
I've never smoked a tomato.
That was different. You were younger then.
Tomatoes don't burn very well, so they don't smoke very well.
Oh, my God.
But those mussels are awesome.
This is just stupendous. I didn't get a chance to try the bread. The bread looks amazing with it because it's a lot to hold.
The bread is good too.
But
so one of the things
Willie just he outdid himself.
One of the things with mussels is there's always a broth.
Yep.
And you take that bread, you soak it in that broth, and oh my goodness, just how fantastic it is. The smell when Chef Willie brought these out.
Well, and the problem you run into is like a lot of mussels when you get them, because they continue to cook in the broth and everything else, right? So they get real chewy, real rubbery.
No.
It's perfect.
No.
Oh, my God, it's perfect.
They're a perfect here.
Yeah, and you can see from our food cam, which we probably need to just make sure that everybody knows the food cam, that's the plate. This is the kind of food you get when you come here. Absolutely fantastic. And by the way, if you're listening on radio and you're like, well, you're on radio, idiot, I can't see it. How about this? Go to Facebook, go to X, go to Instagram, go to YouTube. We're on all of them. You can find this on all of those platforms. And if it's not there yet, trust me, it's coming soon, because now we are not just audio, we are video too here on Implicit Bias. So we've got plenty to talk about. And that food, this is the first entree of the night from Chef Willie. The next one is going to be a lamb chop. We're going to talk about that in a minute. What, Renee?
Well, I just want to expound on this. Looking at it on Facebook, YouTube, and all that, no. Come here. You need to come here, because we can talk about it, you can look at it, but you can't experience it unless you come here.
Renee, do we need to put you on a podium in front of the White House, put a bunch of red lights and a couple of Marines behind you? You can tell people what to do?
Yes.
All right, Grant, you wanted to chime in? Uh-oh.
Growing up like we did in New Orleans, my experience with mussels is that they were always just a little tougher.
Yeah.
A little tougher chew. And I don't know what Chef Willie did with this, but
he cooked them right.
Thank you. And
you're welcome.
That's hard to say, because I've tasted them before, especially at lakefront restaurants. I've had them, but that is just such a beautiful flavor.
Well, we don't typically do mussels in Louisiana. We do oysters because we're coastal. But then again, we have that whole thing. And I know we're in a month with R right now, but it's still like 145 billion degrees outside. That whole thing with, month with R for oysters because it's cool. No. What Chef Willie has done is he gets the freshest seafood. He does Louisiana a lot. And then he does stuff like this, which is exceptional international fare that is off the charts. Like, I can't wait to taste one of these oysters. But we've got some stories. We got to continue to solve the problems of the world with this particular weekly whiskey in front of us. And this to me is something that cannot go undiscussed. Did I just create a word there? Undiscussed? Nah, whatever. So we now have a guaranteed second attempt on one candidate's life, which is more impromptu interviews than the other candidate has done. Just saying. But we have 2 attempts on a presidential candidate's life. But oh my goodness, can we talk about the second alleged shooter? Because this is a deep, deep rabbit hole. So I'm going to start here. Renee, I saw you grab the mic. I need you to hold on for a minute because this is going to take a second. So here's what I want you to know. Here's what essentially we know from basic investigation. Go look this up on X. Go look this up anywhere. You're going to find these things. So number 1, the second attempted shooter lived in North Carolina for a while and was broke, and then moved to the most expensive state in the country for cost of living, which is Hawaii. So you got a guy who can't afford to live in North Carolina who moves to Hawaii, who then starts a business that essentially puts like one post up on the internet and then does nothing. And at that point begins to fly himself back and forth to Ukraine to support Ukrainian fighters. And at one point apparently is offering $1,200 per person who will sign up to fight for Ukraine. So the guy has no money. He's flying himself to Ukraine. He's offering people money to fight for Ukraine. And he's recruiting fighters for Ukraine. But he's got no money. I'm just saying. Then ends up in pictures with U.S. lawmakers in Washington, D.C. lobbying for what? More money for Ukraine. Okay. Then all of a sudden, somehow ends up after having what? More than 40 felonies, one of which was for possession of weapons of mass destruction. Please don't believe me. Please don't believe me on this. Please go look this up. Because if you don't believe me, we might actually learn something together. But one of his felony convictions is for weapons of mass destruction, is allowed to purchase not an AK-47. There's a differential here. It's an SKS, which is a different weapon. Somehow gets this weapon that has obliterated serial numbers, which is one of the official charges from the DOJ. And somehow 12 hours before a presidential candidate is on a golf course, decides, I'm going to make my way from apparently North Carolina to Hawaii to Ukraine to D.C. back to or wherever he came from to a golf course in Florida and sat there for 12 hours before he was going to potentially take pot shots because he had a camera at a presidential candidate. I don't know about you. I don't know about anybody here in the top secret podcast layer south, which is Mr. Lester Steakhouse. Don't BS a BSer and tell me that this guy who's got no money, who's got no credentials, who's got nothing behind him, is all of a sudden just gonna end up in the right place. Is it possible? Sure. It's also possible that I could win the lottery while riding a unicorn on a rainbow bridge to meet a freaking leprechaun who's got a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's possible. Is it probable? Not even close. What this screams to me is that this guy had sponsorship from someone or some entity inside of a government somewhere around the world. Caleb, you want to chime in?
So when you look at purchasing a firearm, one of the questions that I ask you is, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
First question.
Well, not first.
Well, okay, not first.
Not first, but it's on there. Yes or no. And my assumption is this person checked no, which is falsifying a government document, which is something similar to like Hunter Biden, where he was charged with this.
And pleaded guilty, evidently.
And pled guilty.
I apologize. He pleaded guilty to tax evasion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So then it goes
difference.
through, and if you don't come back as a denial on your NICS, your National Instant Criminal Check Services, or if it goes past your waiting period, and there's no response, you can get your firearm. The obliterated serial number, in my guess, right, this is a guess, happened after the fact because maybe he wanted to hide the fact where the firearm came from or anything else.
Oh, we got 1 minute? What, Walker?
Let's go long because
Okay.
I actually want to chime in after
Okay,
Renee.
we'll go long. That's fine. Let's go long.
So
I like going long.
My assumption is that he tried to hide a firearm. Now, the United States, the receiver, whatever the receiver's definition is of that firearm, is what the serial number that counts is. Now, your SKS, many other firearms too, but your SKS, your bolt has a serial number, your barrel has a serial number, your receiver has a serial number, and then for the purists, your stock has a serial number as well as your. I'm not even going to call it a magazine because it's not a removable magazine; it's an internal magazine.
Internal.
So
Yes.
the question becomes which serial number was obliterated?
Correct. Now, U.S. definition would be the receiver itself, which is the metal part, the lower, which houses the trigger mechanism. That would be the one that he obliterated. Doesn't mean we can't track it. So there is further down this rabbit hole to go.
This is purely circumstantial evidence. This guy was just sitting there
Minding his own business.
minding his own business
Yep.
with his SKS and his GoPro, and for 12 hours.
Okay.
That nobody knew that Trump was going to be playing golf at that golf course because it wasn't on his schedule. He just so happened to show up.
Yep. All right, Walker. You want to better off dead. What are your thoughts?
Like Renee said, no one knew. It was a last-minute tee time that Trump just magically, like, last-minute tee time went golf. Dan Bongino.
There were three people allegedly who knew.
Dan Bongino touched on it and said there is a rat in the Secret
There's
Service.
gotta be.
There's got to be.
There's gotta
no
be.
way.
It's got to
But
happen.
also, I saw a video on X. There, the buses that Kamala brings in for a rally because
This is a deep rabbit hole.
people don't go to that she just buses in. He was in the video. Of
Okay,
one.
so
Wait,
I don't know if that's
are
him.
these
ew.
the white buses that
Yes.
have no markings and no?
That's a whole nother discussion. But to Walker's point, was it him that was actually at? What we know is this: we know that both him and Crooks, and this is a deep rabbit hole. We're going to ask you to go down this on your own. Him and Crooks, the alleged first shooter on Trump, both donated money to Act Blue. Start there. They both were in videos that were paid for by a company called BlackRock. And here's the really crazy part. So there is a guy, last name Urich, who was alleged to be the first shooter, but it was a mistaken identity right out of the beginning. Allegedly. Urich has disappeared. There's an article that was written on August 30th. Please don't believe me. Go look this up. Urich Routh Crooks. Search it. It'll come up. This article alleges on August 30th that Crooks, the alleged first shooter at Trump, was sending money to Routh, the second shooter, which now all of a sudden starts connecting the first attempt on his life with the second attempt on his life, which makes it really, really interesting moving forward.
Well, and let's not stop there because if you think it stops at 1 and 2,
What about 3?
what about 3?
What? Yeah, but
What about
Crooks had no money.
Oh, that
Where
you
did
know
that-
of. He
Well,
had three overseas accounts that were never hacked. Okay, we got to take a break. We got to come back. We've got 2 more segments. I don't want those 2 segments to be too short. This is a deep rabbit hole. Please dig down this rabbit hole on your own and know this one thing. Whatever the media is telling you, they're not telling you everything. Let your implicit bias tell you everything. When we come back, we got to talk Diddy when we come back, because that might just connect everything.